Joining us today on this Monday, June 8th. Can it be that June 8th already? Well, thank you for joining us and caring to search outside the television cage. Bob Chapman is our guest this hour. He is the editor of the International Forecaster newsletter. And if you haven't gotten a copy of it, we'll tell you how a little bit later to get a complimentary copy, because I know he's going to tweak your interest in wanting to know more, because he seems to be on the forefront of what's happening financially in this country. And I thank him for joining us today. Thank you so much, Bob, for joining us in the Power Hour today. Do we have Bob Chapman? To get back to us. Bob, thank you for joining us in the Power Hour today.
Well, you're welcome, and sorry I got cut off there, but those things happen.
No problem, no problem. I do thank you for joining us today and helping us see outside this television box. You know, I just want to make a comment about these television info babes. I don't know if you watch Fox Financial News or not, but have you ever noticed that the cleavage goes down more and the skirts go up more on these young info babes that have got to have all the knowledge of about a 15-year-old on the financial industry?
Well, yes, you're right, and it shouldn't happen. It does. Fox's criteria, obviously, is to the attractiveness to some of more exposure of the female body. And there's nothing we can do about it except not watch.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to go on it. Fox is a strange conundrum. I've done a lot of programs in the last couple of months on Fox, and they really don't like me talking about the Federal Reserve, but obviously they tolerate it because they keep on going back. It's strange.
Well, I think that they're going to have to deal with it, because now they've got 190 supporters on this End the Fed bill. Well, not End the Fed, but Audit the Fed bill, which they hope will lead to ending the Fed. And with 190 supporters, they're starting to have to take a transient look at what the Federal Reserve might represent, because I think the time is coming where they're going to be forced to.
Well, that 190 is astronomical when you stack back and look at it. I started my crusade a few months ago when it was around 120, and hopefully I've been instrumental in putting some heat on some of these congressmen and that they have switched positions. But it is the most important piece of legislation. That's H.R. 1207 to come along in many, many years. And if we can get rid of the Fed and turn their duties over to the U.S. Treasury, stop the revolving door between Wall Street and the Treasury by some sort of limiting legislation, and if we can get legislation which would implement tariffs on goods and services, we can get out of the problem that we're in. But if we can't do that, I don't see any answer other than continued hyperinflation, an eventual deflationary collapse, which will take in the whole world as well. And probably these insane people in the Illuminati will probably start another war, which could end up wiping out half the people on the face of the earth.
Yeah,
That's where this whole thing is headed.
Yeah, the question is, which war? What war? Where are we going to go next? Because we got to make more money. We don't have any income coming in this country. We're spending it all right now vis-a-vis the stimulus package, which is stimulating no jobs whatsoever. And we're using that stimulus money to send all the jobs to China, Russia, Brazil, wherever GM decides to go. And so we're going to have nothing here for our people.
You're absolutely correct. And it's just going to continue to degenerate. Free trade, globalization, offshoring, and outsourcing have ripped the heart out of our country. And that degenerative process is going to continue. And as long as we have 30 million illegal aliens in the country, of which some perhaps 14 or 15 million are working illegally, drawing down the wages at the lower end of the wage scale, we're going to continue to stay in the economic and financial dumps. You know, all the money that's been allocated, with minor exception, has all gone to the financial industry, not only in the United States, but foreign. I mean, we've got the Fed and the Treasury committed for $14.8 trillion. They have monetization in process, and what that means is when money is used by the Fed to go into the market or to the Treasury and purchase bonds, it's very inflationary because they don't have the money to do it. They create it out of thin air. And so right now we have $2.2 trillion funneling directly into toxic mortgage securities called CDOs, which is collateralized debt obligations, agency securities bonds, which are Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, etc., and U.S. Treasuries. Inflation is going to go wild. It began this past month, starting to tick up again, and I'm starting to look at the preliminary figures both here and in England. England's ahead of us, incidentally. And England is increasing its money supply at 17.4% annualized, and we're doing it at 18 right now. And incidentally, the new unemployment figure for U6, the real figure is 20.2%. And so we're going to see continued higher unemployment, not as fast as before over the next year to year and a quarter, but it'll get worse later.
Now, wait a second. Did you say
you'll see a planing.
Okay, but excuse me, did you say the true unemployment figure is 20%?
No, 20.2%.
Well, 20.2% is the true unemployment rate?
Right. You take the U6, which is official government figures, at 16.4%. And if you take out the birth-death ratio, which is a cockamamie thing that doesn't mean anything, that the government uses to juggle the numbers any way they please, and what it is the government says X amount of jobs were created by small and medium-sized businesses that we don't know anything about. So they make this number up every month. So if you add in that number or subtract it, either or, depending upon which number you're going to, it's 20.2%.
20.2%. Of course, they just released. You know what I thought was interesting? On Friday morning, they said, Fox Info Babe said, well, from our sources, it appears that unemployment may be as high as 16.2%. Well, what do they come out with? Unbeknownst to them, wow, were we close? 16.4%. And they always know in advance because they know in advance. And now you're saying, though, it's closer to 20.2%. That's huge. That is absolutely huge in this country. No wonder USA Today announces that 600,000 seniors in this country, 600,000 seniors are going to lose their homes. 600,000. This is horrendous.
That's right. And they could care less. And, all my bleating for the past 15 years is coming home to roost. Finally, the mainline economists and media are being forced to pick up U6, which is short-term unemployment, which is 9.4, includes part-timers who are being forced to take less hours than 40 hours a week, say 32 or 28 or whatever. All those people who are no longer receiving state unemployment checks, and those who are discouraged, people who can't get any more checks, can't find a job, and have rolled over into some kind of welfare, or they're working in the black market.
Well, what we're doing is looking at massive unemployment. I mean, massive, on the average of probably every other person, I think, being unemployed in this country. Would you go along with that grave prediction?
You're absolutely right, Joyce, and they continue to play it down. I was on a radio program in Boston this morning, WPIX, and a caller called in and said the same thing that we're talking about. I was stunned that somebody actually out there knows what we're talking about and agrees. But
WPIX is a big station in Boston. I'm thrilled to see that they are having some listeners out there who maybe have figured this game out. When we come back from this break, I want to talk about the statement that was made of Elizabeth, what's her name, that we don't know where all that money went. We'll be right back after this 4-minute break with the Bob Chapman. Stay tuned to the Power Hour.